Every ounce of effort, every skill that I've got, I'll play the Super League's greatest, give them my best shot. Every minute of the 90, now I'm gonna be a fighter. 'Cause 1, 2, 3, I'm a super striker.
If your kids are around, they probably want to keep watching. But instead of showing an episode of the hit series Super Strikers, we are going to take a look behind the scenes and see how animation can be a profitable business in Cape Town. Richard Morgan-Grenville, CEO of Strika Entertainment, will draw it up for you in words.
Kind of had an idea that they'd really like to introduce a set of heroes that were relevant to young people in South Africa. They felt that, you know, kind of your typical heroes that you were fed from the US were not particularly culturally relevant. You had Superman and Spider-Man, and for guys growing up in Soweto or Khayelitsha or Manenberg, there was a bit of a gap between what their world was about and guys running around in underpants on the wrong side of their pants and things like that. And one of the guys had very fond memories of reading the Roy of the Rovers comics when he was a kid, and he said, well, it's got to be a soccer comic, because if there's one thing that unites the majority of the population in South Africa, it's soccer. And Roy of the Rovers was such a hit, why don't we take that concept and try and make that work here in South Africa? In a short space of time, we realized two things. One, that we had a character set that people identified with, we had a story that people wanted to read about, and we needed to make it bigger. And very early on, we went into a 24-page comic, which allowed us to have 15, 16 pages of content and a cover, and use the rest for advertising and promotional opportunities, and to increase engagement between our readers and ourselves as a brand, and the partners that came into the comic as sponsors, if you will. So very, very early on, we switched across to a multi-page format and came up with a model to have one headline sponsor, which would go on the jersey, and another 5 additional second-tier sponsors, which would go into the environment of the comic. So they would go into field boards around the comic. So if there was a scene with a goal, you'd see some field boards behind the goal, and that would be sponsored.
Now we know how that promotion in the comic generates income. Let's check out who draws these comics and how they are made. Therefore, we spoke to Bonisa Bonani, who has been an illustrator for Strika almost since day one.
The comic was started by mutual friends back in 2001, and they already had the initial idea of the comic, but they didn't have an artist at the time to carry forward their vision. But fortunately, they discovered me when I was still in college, so they got me on board, and then I've been working on these characters ever since.
A good sleuth always returns to the scene of the crime. Strika Land. I gotta get there fast. Okay, now I gotta get there fast.
What we try to do when we draw these characters, we always trying to find new, exciting forms of, give them exciting expressions and angles, you know, and because we're working with the same characters for a long period of time, so the challenge is to give them new and interesting ways of making them appeal to people, even if it's people who've been reading the comic for so long. So the idea is always try to get the reader interested at them, you know. So that's the exciting and challenging part of it.
Basically, we take the scamps and we try and refine the imagery from there, and just for the narrative to flow properly, we take directly from the scamp into a more refined style of illustrating.
Our first issue went out with around about 70,000 copies, and today we're printing about 1.5 million copies of Super Strikers, in about 16 different countries. Conservatively, about 10 million readers around the world of a comic every month. And on top of that, now with our TV show, we're being viewed in roughly 35 countries in 6 different languages, including Mandarin, and on broadcasters like Disney, Al Jazeera Kids, Nickelodeon, SABC, and it's really been a fantastic achievement.
This will be a real test for them. I hope Dancing Rasta's preparing his team for the challenge.
Today, if you look at where our revenue comes from, it's probably 50% print, 50% the TV product. I think in 5 years' time, we should have the majority of our revenues coming from merchandising, followed by digital products for internet delivery products. So I'm talking about tablet products and phone products. And then after that, you'll probably see the TV product. And right at the bottom, you'll see our printed comics.
What? Okay. I help you. Hey! How you guys get so good?
Spencer and I grew up playing soccer together. From the streets to the stadium.
You know, we're very excited about what digital has to offer us, but we fully realize that we've got to experiment. We've got to start experimenting now. Probably some of our original products won't be great, but we need to go out there and deliver digital products. So if we've done 25,000 on the OV store today, at least now we've got a benchmark. We can say, okay, well, we started, attempt 1 got us 25. So how do we get 50? And then once we get 50, we can ask ourselves, well, how do we make it 100, and then 200, and then 400, and go from there.
1, 2, 3, I'm a super striker.